Hey guys, tonight some friends and I are stepping onto a path we wish we'd found years ago. Let's say this is a testimony from those of us who have been through it. You know that feeling, right? The weight of the responsibilities you asked for, the quiet hum of the evening after a long day, staring at a screen but not really seeing it. You're doing everything you're supposed to, ticking the boxes, but there's this underlying sense that you're just managing the days. You're on autopilot, and a part of you is quietly asking, is this really it? We all mix and sew this into something complete. We present it to you, and you won't find it anywhere else. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together.
The pervasive sense of being stuck that haunts you, that nagging feeling that you're on autopilot, going through the motions in your career and family life without any real forward momentum, is not a failure of vision or a lack of opportunity, but a profound and misunderstood form of grief. You are grieving a past version of yourself, an identity that once felt solid but has now dissolved, whether it was the professional with a clear path, the parent of young children who needed you differently, or the person who believed in a certain future that life has since rewritten. This grief masquerades as stagnation because it roots you in what was, leaving you clinging to memories, habits, or expectations that no longer serve the person you are becoming. And the tension you feel is the silent battle between a reality that has already evolved and the part of you that refuses to let go. We often misinterpret this inner conflict as being directionless, convinced that if we only had a better plan or a clearer sign, we could move forward. But the liberating truth is that you are not stuck because you don't know the next step. You are stuck because you haven't yet released the handhold of a former self. That identity, the one you miss, the one you think you should still be, is what anchors you in place. And as the wisdom reveals, what's holding you back is precisely what you're holding on to. The moment you acknowledge this grief, you transform it from a wall into a doorway. By allowing yourself to mourn that chapter without judgment, you create space for the present to breathe, and you begin to see that your current situation, however frustrating, is not a prison, but a launchpad rich with unseen skills and possibilities waiting to be collected. Momentum does not come from having the entire map illuminated. It springs from the courageous decision to stop wanting to be where you are anymore, to honor the past without being bound by it, and to open your hands in release. So tonight, as you settle into the quiet, let this be your gentle invitation to reflection, not action. Ask yourself with kindness and curiosity, what one thing, an old identity, a faded dream, a familiar comfort, am I gripping so tightly that it keeps me from feeling the freedom of this moment? Simply noticing the answer without any pressure to change it tonight is the first step toward lightness, a quiet acknowledgement that you are not broken, but in transition, and that this very feeling of being stuck is the evidence of your growth, waiting to be integrated.
It's not the overwhelming demands of your present or the uncertainty of your future that truly keeps you feeling stuck, but the silent, unseen anchors you've carefully preserved from your past. Those identities, expectations, and memories you clutch so tightly that they tether you to a shoreline you've already sailed from, creating an illusion of safety while quietly draining your momentum. You move through your days with a capable exterior, meeting deadlines and family obligations, yet underneath hums a persistent ache, a sense that you're playing a role written for a previous version of yourself, one that no longer fits the man you are becoming. This autopilot existence isn't a lack of ambition, it's the weight of invisible loyalties, to the professional title you earned years ago that now feels constricting, to the memory of how your family life once was, to the outdated script of who you thought you were supposed to be, all of which act like ghosts in the machinery of your daily life, creating friction where there should be flow. The liberating truth drawn from profound wisdom is that these anchors are not part of your foundation. They are artifacts you are curating, and the stagnation you feel is simply the resistance of holding on to what life has already released. Whether it's the identity of the driven young professional, the hands-on parent of small children, or the person who believed success looked one specific way. Just as a ship cannot sail while its anchor is dug deep, you cannot move forward while your energy is invested in preserving a museum of past selves. And the moment you shift from asking, "What's next?" to "What am I still carrying?" you begin to see that the clutter of old identities is what clouds your clarity. This isn't about betrayal of your past, but about honoring its lesson, while courageously making space for the present. It's recognizing that the very thing you fear losing, that old sense of self, is precisely what is preventing you from discovering a deeper, more authentic fulfillment. So tonight, as you prepare for rest, let this not be a task, but a gentle inquiry, a moment of quiet curiosity. What one invisible anchor, a story you tell about yourself, an expectation you uphold for others, a chapter you've refused to close, can you simply acknowledge without judgment, allowing it to exist not as a chain, but as a part of your history that you are now ready to gently release? There is no need to act, only to notice, and in that noticing, feel the subtle shift where a burden begins to lighten, creating a new spaciousness for what is truly meant to emerge.
The greatest mistake you can make with a job you merely tolerate isn't staying in it. It's blindly enduring the days while mentally counting down the hours, viewing this chapter of your life as a prison sentence to be survived, rather than the very launchpad that will propel you into the future you truly desire. You know this feeling all too well. The Sunday night dread that seeps into your bones, the autopilot commute where your body moves but your spirit feels left behind, the capable execution of tasks that once held meaning but now ring hollow, leaving you with that quiet, nagging question of whether this is all there is, as you provide for your family and meet your responsibilities, yet feel a growing distance between the man you are and the man you sense you could become. This ache is not a sign of failure. It is a signal that you are outgrowing the skin of a former identity, and the frustration you feel is the friction between where you are and where you are meant to be. But the critical insight drawn from a deeper wisdom is that this very place you resent is not a dead end, but a dynamic training ground, a deliberate phase of collection where every interaction, every challenge, and even the monotony are offering you essential skills and insights that will one day connect into a clear picture of purpose. Imagine for a moment that this job is not the final destination, but the runway. Just as an airplane needs a solid surface to gain speed before takeoff, you are in the process of building momentum, gathering crucial tools, whether it's patience from managing difficult conversations, resilience from navigating bureaucracy, or clarity about what truly energizes you by noticing what drains you. And this mindset shift transforms the experience from soul-crushing duty into a strategic investment in your own evolution. The key is to stop asking, "When will I escape?" and start asking, "What can I learn here?" Because the future is not built in the elusive 2 hours of free time after the kids are asleep, but in the 8 to 9 hours you are already investing, where you can choose to see each day as a series of experiments in building confidence, competence, and character. This is not about pretending to love what you do, but about changing your relationship with it, from a place of passive endurance to active collection, where you become an archaeologist of your own potential, sifting through the layers of your current role to uncover the transferable strengths that will form the foundation of your next chapter. So tonight, as you settle into the stillness, let this be a moment of gentle curiosity, not pressure. What one skill, insight, or piece of wisdom is this current role offering you right now, almost like a hidden gift that you can acknowledge without judgment, simply noticing how it might be preparing you for a future that is already taking shape within you? There is no need to change anything tonight, only to recognize that you are not stuck on a treadmill, but are in fact gathering speed for a takeoff that begins with this simple shift in perspective.
You've been sold a dangerous lie that purpose is a hidden destination you must find, a single shining light waiting to be discovered, leaving you feeling like a failure as you search the horizon for a sign that never comes. While the truth is that purpose is not found at all. It is built patiently and deliberately, piece by piece, from the raw material of every experience you are already living, especially the ones you dismiss as ordinary or difficult. That feeling of being on autopilot, of moving through your career and family responsibilities with a quiet sense of disconnect, isn't a sign that you lost. It's a sign that you're in the vital, often misunderstood phase of collection, gathering the very dots that you will one day connect. You are collecting skills in that job you tolerate. Patience from navigating family dynamics. Resilience from overcoming daily frustrations, and profound clarity about what truly matters to you by experiencing what drains your energy and what restores it. This isn't wasted time. It's the essential groundwork. The paradigm shift, drawn from profound wisdom, is that we don't find our purpose by looking ahead into the unknown. We uncover it by looking back at the trail we've already blazed, recognizing that each role, each challenge, each season of life is giving us a unique piece of the puzzle, and your current sense of overwhelm is simply the feeling of holding many unconnected dots. Imagine your life as a vast collection of these dots,
seemingly random points of data, emotion, and skill, and trust that there will come a moment of synthesis where you will step back and see how they all form a coherent, beautiful picture, where your experience in management illuminates your role as a parent, where your patience learned through hardship becomes the foundation for your creativity. This process requires trust that nothing is wasted, that the moments you consider setbacks or detours are actually central to the design, and the pressure to have it all figured out immediately dissolves when you see yourself as an artisan, not an archaeologist. You are not digging for a buried treasure. You are crafting a mosaic from the fragments of your journey. So tonight, as you let the day settle, release the burden of searching for the one big answer, and instead ask yourself this simple, reflective question. When I look back over the last year, what is one small, seemingly insignificant dot I have collected? A lesson, a strength, a newfound preference that I can now appreciate as a necessary part of my unique construction. There is no need to connect it to anything else just yet. Simply acknowledge its presence, and in doing so, feel the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are not falling behind, but are, always inevitably, building.
The relentless cycle of frustration you face, the same argument with your partner, the familiar doubt that creeps in at work, the recurring feeling that you're not quite measuring up is not evidence that you're broken or doomed to repeat your mistakes, but a profound indication that you are sitting in the classroom of life, and the universe is patiently, persistently presenting the same lesson until you finally allow it to sink in. You know this pattern all too well. That sense of déjà vu when a challenge arises, the weary recognition that you've been here before, battling the same internal resistance or external obstacle, which leaves you feeling trapped in a loop rather than progressing on a path, convinced that if you were smarter or stronger, you would have overcome this by now. This repetition is not punishment, it is curriculum, and the discomfort you feel is the gentle pressure of growth, the necessary friction required to sand down your rough edges and polish your understanding, much like a teacher who repeats a fundamental principle until the student can not only recite it, but live it. The paradigm shift, drawn from ancient wisdom, is to see these spirals not as failures, but as sacred assignments. Each recurrence is an invitation to look deeper, to ask what core belief, what unhealed wound, or what outdated way of being is being called forth for examination and release. Life does not waste your time with meaningless repetition. Every repeated challenge is a customized lesson, designed to build a specific strength or instill a crucial insight, whether it's about setting boundaries, practicing patience, embracing vulnerability,
or learning to trust your own judgment. When you shift from asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" to "What is this trying to teach me?" you reclaim your power from the role of victim and step into the role of student, actively engaged in your own evolution. And the very patterns that felt like prisons become stepping stones. This perspective transforms overwhelm into curiosity, replacing exhaustion with a quiet determination to understand the message woven into the fabric of your daily struggles. So tonight, as you settle into the stillness, release the need to solve anything and instead offer yourself this single gentle question for reflection. If this current challenge, this familiar feeling, is my teacher, what is the one lesson it has been trying to impart to me about who I am and how I choose to move through the world? Simply sit with the question without demanding an immediate answer, and trust that in the quiet, the lesson will begin to reveal itself not as a burden, but as a key unlocking a door you've been standing before for far too long.
There is a relentless, unspoken pressure to always be climbing, achieving, and pushing forward. But what if the most profound progress you can make right now is not a step ahead, but a step inward? To simply stop and acknowledge that some seasons of life are not meant for building, but for healing, and that this feeling of being held back is not a sign of weakness, but a signal from your deepest self that a wound needs attention before you can move on. You feel this deeply, that heavy exhaustion that isn't cured by sleep, the low-grade hum of anxiety or sadness that colors your days, the frustration that you can't just get over something and return to the motivated, driven person you remember being. This isn't a lack of discipline. It is the soul's equivalent of a physical injury, and trying to run a marathon on a broken ankle only causes more damage and prolongs the suffering. The liberating shift in perspective is to see this chapter not as a prison of stagnation, but as a sacred hospital ward, a temporary, necessary sanctuary where your only job is to mend, to rest, to allow the natural intelligence of your own spirit to do its reparative work away from the demands of the outside world. In a hospital, the priority is not productivity, it is recovery. And the courage required here is not the courage of force, but the courage of surrender, to admit the pain, to accept the need for care, and to grant yourself the radical permission to pause. This healing might be for an old grief you've carried for years, a betrayal that shook your trust, a sense of failure that has become a silent burden, or simply the cumulative fatigue of being strong for everyone else for far too long. So tonight, as you let the day fall away, quiet the voice that tells you to be further along, and instead ask yourself this one gentle, compassionate question.
If I were to treat this moment of my life with the same respect and care as a time of physical recovery, what is the one thing, an old heart, a current fear, a weary part of my spirit, that is most in need of my kind attention and simply needs to be heard? There is no need to fix it tonight. Simply acknowledging the wound with compassion is the first and most powerful act of healing, a silent agreement with yourself that you are worth the time it takes to become whole again.
You've been led to believe that insight alone is enough to transform your life, that simply hearing a powerful idea or reading the right book should magically propel you forward. And when it doesn't, you assume you're the problem, lacking willpower or motivation. When the truth is that learning is merely the first stage in a 5-stage journey to lasting change. And most people get stuck because no one ever told them about the crucial, messy, and essential steps that come after. You know this feeling all too well. The inspiration that fades by morning. The podcast that pumps you up only to have its wisdom evaporate by the time you face your first challenge of the day, leaving you with a growing library of insights and a sinking feeling that you're not implementing any of it, which erodes your confidence and makes you wonder if real change is even possible for you. This isn't a personal failure. It is a structural misunderstanding of how growth actually works, which unfolds through a deliberate sequence. You must first learn the new idea, but then you must experiment with it, playing with it, trying it out in different situations, allowing it to fail and succeed without judgment, which is where most people stop, mistaking a single failed experiment for a final verdict. If you persist through experimentation, you eventually enter a phase of performance, where the new mindset or skill starts to become integrated, feeling more natural and less forced. But this is precisely when you will encounter the struggle, a final, significant test of your commitment that arises just before you break through to a new level of understanding and ability. It is this struggle, this friction, that most misinterpret as a sign they're on the wrong path, when it is actually the surest sign they are on the right one, the necessary resistance before the final stage of thrive, where the change becomes an authentic and enduring part of who you are. The magic, then, is not in the learning, but in the reflective practice of moving through these stages. The conscious, gentle evaluation after each experiment, each struggle, asking not, "Did I fail?" but "What can I learn from this attempt? How can I adjust my approach?" This reframes the entire journey from a pass-fail test to an ongoing process of mastery. So tonight, as you release the day, consider this not as a task, but as a quiet inquiry, reflecting on a change you've wanted to make. Which of these 5 stages, learning, experimenting, performing, struggling, or thriving, feels most familiar to you right now? And can you simply acknowledge your current position without judgment, seeing it not as a fixed location, but as a natural and necessary part of the map that leads to where you want to go?
Society has conditioned you to see quitting as a sign of failure, a scarlet letter of inadequacy. But what if the most profound act of courage and self-respect you can undertake is to become a professional quitter? To master the art of knowingly and gracefully releasing the identities, roles, and paths that have served their purpose, but now confine you, even when everyone around you expects you to stay. You feel this tension daily, the weight of a career that once sparked ambition, but now feels like a cage. The exhaustion of upholding an image of competence while inwardly crumbling. The silent guilt that arises when you fantasize about walking away from responsibilities that define you to others but drain you from within, all because you've been taught that endurance is virtue and quitting is betrayal. This internal conflict is not a lack of grit. It is the soul's intelligence rebelling against a life that has become too small. And the stuckness you experience is simply the friction between who you were and who you are becoming. A friction exacerbated by clinging to outdated versions of yourself out of fear of judgment or the unknown. The liberating truth echoed by those who have successfully navigated profound change is that quitting is not an admission of defeat, but a declaration of evolution. It is the essential first step toward alignment, where you trade the false security of the familiar for the authentic pull of your future self. Think of the most transformative figures in your life or history. They all mastered the art of quitting. Quitting limiting beliefs, quitting toxic environments, quitting roles that stifled their growth. And they did so not with recklessness, but with the precision of a surgeon removing what is harmful to preserve the health of the whole. Your ability to quit what is wrong, whether it's a job, a habit, an expectation, or even a dream that has turned sour, is not a weakness, but a profound strength, a skill that requires discernment and bravery, and it is often the very thing that precedes your greatest breakthroughs. Giving yourself this permission slip to quit is an act of reclaiming your agency, a silent promise that your worth is not tied to your endurance in situations that diminish you, but to your commitment to your own growth and well-being. So tonight, as you release the day's pressures, consider this not as a call to abrupt action, but as an invitation to gentle honesty. If you were to grant yourself the unconditional permission to quit one thing, not out of frustration, but out of deep respect for your journey, what would it be? It might be the need to please everyone, the pursuit of a goal that no longer resonates, or the identity of the relentless provider at the cost of your own joy. Simply breathe into that question without judgment and feel the quiet empowerment that comes from acknowledging that sometimes the most strategic move forward is a conscious, dignified step away.
You've been taught that you need a detailed map for your entire journey before you can take the first step. That clarity must precede action, and so you remain paralyzed, analyzing every possible route, while the life you want waits on the other side of a simple, terrifying truth. Momentum is not born from having all the answers, but from the courageous decision to release the anchor of a past that no longer serves you. That feeling of being stuck, of spinning your wheels while desperately searching for a signpost or a perfect 5-year plan, is the exhausting result of believing the lie that you must see the entire staircase before you can climb the first step. A myth that keeps you chained to the familiar because the unknown seems too vast to navigate without a guaranteed outcome. The liberating shift in perspective is this: forward movement does not come from a brilliantly lit path, but from the simple, profound act of letting go of what's behind you, the old identity, the outdated expectation, the comfort of a known misery. Because momentum is generated not by the pull of a certain future, but by the push away from a present that no longer fits. Think of a rocket leaving the Launchpad. Its power isn't in the destination, which is unimaginably far away, but in the explosive release from the structures that held it earthbound. Your life operates on the same principle. The energy you seek is trapped in the white-knuckled grip you maintain on a version of yourself that life has already outgrown. And the moment you open your hands, you will feel the natural propulsion that has been waiting for you all along. No one you admire had every step mapped out. They simply had the faith to take one step, and then the next, trusting that the path would reveal itself as they walked it, collecting clues and building confidence through action, not through endless planning. So tonight, as you quiet the noise, release the burden of needing to know how it will all work out, and ask yourself this one gentle question: what single anchor from my past, a story I tell about myself, a fear of how others see me, a chapter I've refused to close, am I ready to acknowledge, not with force, but with gratitude for its service, and then gently release? Simply feeling the weight of that anchor and imagining the freedom of letting it go is not a step into the void, but a step into the current of your own life, where the next right thing will appear not on a map, but under your feet as you finally begin to move.
The most suffocating lie you've been sold is that your purpose must be a single monumental thing, a lone title like lawyer or manager that you are supposed to cling to for life, a narrow identity that forces you to abandon all other parts of yourself in the name of focus, creating the very crisis of meaning you are now experiencing. You feel this pressure acutely, the weight of a career you built with intention, but that now feels constricting, the quiet guilt when you dream of expressing a different talent or pursuing a latent interest, the internal conflict between being a dependable provider and the nagging sense that you are so much more than the single role you play at work, all because an outdated system trained you from childhood to narrow your choices, to pick a major, to specialize, to become one thing. This lie creates a cage where you mistakenly believe that integrating your love for teaching with your skill in building, or your identity as a parent with your desire to create, is a sign of indecision rather than the essence of a rich, multifaceted life.
The liberating truth is that your purpose is not a single destination to be discovered, but a unique tapestry you weave from every thread of your experience. Your past roles, your current skills, your hidden passions, and your greatest superpower is precisely this beautiful, complex combination of all that you have been and all that you are. The most impactful people are not defined by a single title. They are symphonies of seemingly disparate parts. The consultant who is also a monk, the nurse who is also a podcaster, the parent who is also an entrepreneur. And they thrive because they allow their full selves to show up in the world, rejecting the artificial choice between being one thing or another. You are not meant to be a single note played on repeat. You are meant to be a chord, rich with layers and harmony. And the feeling of being unfulfilled is not a sign that you have failed to find your one thing, but a signal that you are ready to stop leaving parts of yourself behind. So tonight, as you release the day, quiet the voice that demands a singular definition of success, and instead ask yourself this simple, expansive question. If I gave myself full permission to be all of who I am, to honor the teacher, the builder, the thinker, the caregiver, the creator within me, all at once, which one neglected part of myself feels most eager to be acknowledged and woven into the story I am living now? There is no need to act, only to acknowledge, and in that acknowledgement, feel the immense relief that comes from realizing you are not lost, but whole, and your purpose has been within you all along, waiting not to be found, but to be fully embraced.
You've been taught that purpose arrives like a lightning strike, a dramatic, undeniable calling that pulls you toward your destiny. But the truth is, that expectation is what's keeping you stuck, because purpose doesn't scream, it whispers. It's the quiet nudge you've learned to dismiss in the noise of deadlines, responsibilities, and the pressure to have it all figured out. You feel a subtle tension between the life you're living and the life you sense is possible. A quiet discontent that manifests as exhaustion, irritability, or a feeling of running on autopilot. And you've likely been taught to ignore that tension as a distraction or an indulgence. But what if that quiet hum of dissatisfaction isn't a problem to be solved, but a signal to be understood? The whisper of purpose isn't a detailed map for the rest of your life. It's a gentle suggestion that says, try this, or give it a go. It shows up not as a burning bush, but as a fleeting curiosity about a book, a sudden urge to learn a skill, a quiet admiration for someone's path, or even a small persistent jealousy that points towards something you desire, but feel unworthy to claim. These aren't random distractions. They are clues from a deeper part of you that remembers what brings you alive. The reason it feels so faint is that it's been ignored for so long. The voice has grown quiet, not because it's unimportant, but because you've been trained to prioritize the loud, urgent demands of external validation over the soft, patient truth of internal alignment. Tonight,
As you settle into the quiet, don't try to force a revelation or demand a sign. Instead, simply ask yourself this one question with gentle curiosity. What is the one thing that feels so easy and natural to me that I barely even consider it a skill? Don't answer it now. Just let it linger. The whisper isn't found in striving. It's heard in the space between your thoughts, in the things you do without effort, in the moments you feel most authentically yourself. Your purpose isn't a distant destination. It's the quiet thread already woven through your life, waiting for you to trust it enough to follow.
You're searching for a sign of success, believing it must be difficult, loud, and recognized by others. But the most profound truth is that you are already successful at something profoundly important. It's just so effortless for you that you dismiss it as ordinary. When you look at your life, you might see the relentless routine, the responsibilities that never cease, and a feeling that you haven't yet arrived at the version of success you were taught to chase, which creates a quiet but persistent sense of falling short. You overlook the natural way you calm a worried child, the instinct you have for making your team feel heard, the ease with which you organize a chaotic situation, or the quiet patience you extend to a friend in need, because these things don't feel like achievements. They feel like just being you. This is the critical misunderstanding. We are trained to believe that value is only found in what is difficult to obtain. So we devalue the very talents that are woven into our character, the superpowers that feel like simple common sense. What you take for granted is precisely what others might see as your greatness, the ability to listen deeply, to bring order from chaos, to encourage others without a second thought, because for them, that very thing is a struggle. Your path forward isn't about acquiring something new from scratch. It's about recognizing the treasure you already possess. So tonight, as the day settles, ask yourself this simple, reflective question without the need for an immediate answer. If I were to ask the 3 people who know me best to name one thing I do that seems to come naturally to me, what would they say? Let that question hang in the quiet. The answer isn't a starting point for a new hustle. It's a key to recognizing that the foundation for a purposeful life is not a distant destination, but a strength you've been carrying all along, waiting only for you to acknowledge its worth.
We've been sold a lie that purpose is a monumental, elusive destination, a grand calling that requires a complete life overhaul. But the simplest and most profound truth is this: purpose is not some mysterious treasure to be unearthed. It is a simple formula waiting to be applied to the life you already have. You might feel a sense of lack, watching others who seem to have found their thing, while your own life is segmented into compartments of duty, with your personal passions feeling like isolated hobbies or guilty pleasures that don't connect to any larger meaning. This disconnect is the source of that quiet ache, the feeling that what brings you joy is separate from what makes you useful. But here is the liberating shift. Passion is simply what brings you alive, what energizes you, whether it's gardening, organizing, learning, or cooking. While purpose is born the moment you channel that energy into the service of others. It doesn't require a charity foundation or a massive audience. It can be as immediate as using your love for cooking to nourish a grieving neighbor, your knack for organizing to help a friend tackle an overwhelming project, or your calm presence to listen to a colleague who feels unheard. Think of the hospital cleaners who saw themselves not as janitors but as healers, understanding that their work created a dignified space for recovery. Their job didn't change, but the meaning they assigned to it transformed everything. Your purpose, then, is not about scaling a mountain of achievement, but about infusing your ordinary moments with intentional service, weaving your passion into the fabric of your existing relationships and responsibilities. So, as you ready for rest, consider this not as a task, but as a gentle inquiry to hold. What is one small, effortless thing I already love to do? And how does it, even in the faintest way, already bring a moment of ease, connection, or comfort to someone else? Don't force an answer. Just let the question illuminate the connections that are already there. Your purpose isn't a future event. It's a present practice, and it can begin in the smallest, most gentle of ways, transforming your everyday life into a living expression of what you truly value.
You've been led to believe that discovering your passion is a complex puzzle to solve in adulthood, but the most direct path to understanding what truly energizes you has been with you all along. It's encoded in the memories of what you loved before the world began to narrow your choices and label your interests as impractical or immature. Right now, you might feel a sense of disconnection from those earlier versions of yourself, as the pressures of building a career, providing for a family, and meeting societal expectations have layered over the simple joys that once felt instinctive, leaving you with a competent exterior that masks an inner uncertainty about what you genuinely enjoy outside of your roles and responsibilities. This feeling arises because, as you were growing up, you were systematically trained to funnel your wide-ranging curiosities into a single identity. Remember being asked what you wanted to be when you grew up, as if you could only choose one thing, and then watching your subjects in school narrow down until you picked a major, a job, a title that now defines you. That process didn't just shape your career, it subtly taught you to dismiss the parts of yourself that didn't fit a linear narrative, making you forget the sheer delight of activities pursued for no other reason than that they made you feel alive. The liberating insight is this: the passions you seek aren't missing, they're merely dormant. And the key to reviving them lies in revisiting the unforced enthusiasms of your youth, the things you did without anyone's approval, before you understood concepts like productivity or value, when joy was the only metric that mattered. Whether it was building forts, drawing endlessly, telling stories, exploring nature, or tinkering with gadgets, those activities were expressions of your innate curiosity and strengths, untouched by the need to achieve or impress, and they hold the blueprint for what still resonates with your core self today. This isn't about reverting to childhood or abandoning your current life. It's about recognizing that those early loves are clues to the energies that can infuse your present with more authenticity and fulfillment.
because they represent the purest form of your interests before they were filtered through obligation or comparison. So tonight, as you settle into the quiet, let your mind drift back with gentle curiosity, not to find a solution, but to reconnect with a feeling. What is one thing you loved to do when you were 10 years old, purely for the joy of it, with no thought of how it might look on a resume or serve a purpose? Don't analyze it or plan to act on it. Simply allow the memory to surface and notice how it feels in your body. The spark of recognition that comes from touching a part of you that has been waiting patiently to be remembered. This reconnection isn't a step backward, it's an integration, a way to honor the full spectrum of who you are and have always been, offering a lens through which your current path can feel more aligned and whole.
You're searching for a sign of your purpose by looking ahead, scanning the horizon for a destination you can't quite see. But the most reliable map to your unique strengths has been drawn not in your future, but in the landscape of your past, in the moments you've already lived and the impacts you've already made. It's easy to feel a sense of absence, to look at your life and see only the gaps, the promotions not yet earned, the goals not yet reached, while overlooking the consistent pattern of how you naturally show up for others. The quiet successes woven into your everyday interactions that feel so ordinary to you, they become invisible. This feeling of being unmoored comes from a fundamental misdirection of attention, because we are conditioned to believe that value is only found in forward momentum and external validation, causing us to dismiss the subtle, powerful evidence of our inherent worth that is already present in our personal history. The paradigm shift is this. Your past is not a museum of failures or missed opportunities. It is a living record of your innate abilities, a trail of breadcrumbs made from the times you effortlessly calmed a stressful situation, the instinct you had for encouraging a colleague, the patience you offered a friend, or the simple reliability that makes people feel safe around you. These are not random acts, but your footprints of success. You have already been adding profound value all along the way. You simply haven't been taught to recognize it as such because it comes so naturally to you. And what is effortless for us, we often assume is effortless for everyone, blinding us to our own superpowers. The path forward tonight is not about striving, but about gently reflecting. As you prepare for rest, bring to mind one specific instance, perhaps from last week or last year, where someone sincerely thanked you for your help or your presence, not for a monumental achievement, but for a simple, natural action you likely took for granted. Don't analyze it or build a plan upon it. Simply hold that memory and observe the quality you demonstrated in that moment. Was it patience, clarity, compassion, or resilience? That quality is not a fleeting coincidence. It is a fundamental thread of your character, a reliable strength that has always been there and will always be there, waiting for you to acknowledge its constancy and trust it as the true compass it has always been. Your purpose is not a foreign land to be discovered, but a homeland to be recognized in the footprints you have already left behind.
You might believe that the answer to your sense of purpose must be found alone, in quiet introspection or relentless self-analysis. But the most revealing mirror is held by the people who know and love you,
because they see the version of you that you hesitate to claim. When you feel stuck, it's often because you're trapped in a loop of your own self-assessment, focusing on what's missing or what you lack. And this inward gaze can become a hall of mirrors that distorts your true image, amplifying doubts and minimizing your most natural strengths until they feel insignificant. The liberating truth is this: the people who truly know you, a trusted friend, a family member, a respected colleague, do not see you through the lens of your insecurities or your unfinished goals. They see you through the consistent pattern of how you show up in their lives. And they value in you what you take for granted because they experience the positive impact of your innate qualities firsthand. What you dismiss as simple or ordinary, the way you always know the right question to ask, your ability to make a complex idea clear, the reliability that makes people feel secure. They recognize as your unique form of genius, your invisible superpower that they may even admire or rely upon. The bravest and most illuminating step you can take is not to try harder to see yourself, but to humbly ask for their reflection, to pose simple, open questions to those few who have earned the right to speak into your life. What is something I do that you always think of me? Or when you're facing a challenge, what do you feel I help you solve? This is not about seeking empty praise. It is about gathering data on your inherent value from the most reliable sources available, the people who witness your character in action. So tonight, as you let the day settle, release the pressure to have it all figured out on your own, and instead, simply bring to mind one person whose opinion you genuinely trust. Don't plan the conversation or draft a message. Just rest with the quiet understanding that a more complete picture of your strengths already exists, held safely in the hearts and minds of those who care for you. This realization is not an assignment, but a permission slip to stop striving in isolation and to begin trusting the evidence of the positive impact you already have, allowing the collective insight of your community to gently guide you toward a more confident and authentic understanding of the value you carry wherever you go.
That sharp, uncomfortable pang of jealousy you feel when you see someone living a life that resonates deeply with you isn't the character flaw to be suppressed. It is a crucial piece of navigation data, a signal from your deepest self pointing toward a desire that is meant for you. In moments of feeling stagnant or disconnected, it's common to witness the success or fulfillment of others and experience a bitter cocktail of admiration and resentment, a feeling that their progress highlights your own lack, leaving you diminished and frustrated in the shadows of their achievement. This reaction, however, is based on a fundamental misdirection of energy, where you focus on the outcome they have, the platform, the recognition, the apparent ease, and interpret your longing as evidence of your inadequacy, rather than what it truly is, a reflection of a latent potential within you that is asking to be developed. The profound shift is this simple switch from envy to study transforms this painful emotion into your greatest strategic advantage, because weak people envy those ahead of them, while strong people study them, recognizing that the same image that triggers insecurity can instead become a blueprint for understanding the process, discipline, and steps required to build a life of purpose. When you consciously choose to study someone you admire, you stop comparing your behind-the-scenes struggle to their highlight reel and begin to deconstruct the practical realities, the routines they follow, the challenges they overcame, the skills they cultivated, the mindset they maintain, which demystifies their success and reveals it as a series of achievable steps, not magic. This shift in perspective turns the person from a rival into a mentor from afar, and your jealousy into focused curiosity, because it is impossible to be genuinely jealous of something you understand the full cost of. Admiration grows, resentment fades, and you reclaim your power. So, as you end this day, consider this not as a task, but as a quiet reframe. The next time you feel that familiar twinge of envy towards someone, simply pause and ask yourself this one question with detached curiosity. What is one specific, tangible quality or skill this person demonstrates that I feel drawn to cultivate in myself? Do not judge the feeling or rush to action. Simply allow the question to reorient your gaze from what they have to what they do. And in doing so, you will begin to see the path not as a blocked road, but as a landscape of learnable skills, where every person who inspires you becomes a signpost pointing toward your own possible growth.
You might believe that the only way to escape the feeling of being trapped in your daily work is to make an external change, a new job, a new career, a complete overhaul. But the most transformative shift available to you requires no resignation letter or drastic leap. It begins internally, by redefining the meaning you assign to the work you already do. If you're feeling the weight of autopilot, where each day blends into the next with a sense of repetitive obligation, and your role has become a list of tasks to be completed rather than a source of fulfillment, you're likely operating under the assumption that your value and purpose are determined solely by your job title or the perceived prestige of your duties, leading to a quiet resignation that this is just how it has to be. This sense of stagnation arises because we are conditioned to see our jobs as fixed entities, with predefined boundaries and expectations that we have no power to alter. But the liberating truth, beautifully illustrated by the hospital cleaners who saw themselves not as janitors but as healers, is that your experience of work is not dictated by the tasks you perform, but by the story you tell yourself about why those tasks matter. These individuals performed the same physical actions as their colleagues, cleaning floors, changing sheets, yet they were happier, more purposeful, and more productive because they crafted a new identity for themselves. They believed a clean environment was integral to healing, that it restored dignity to patients and comfort to families, and in doing so, they transformed their labor into a sacred service. This is the essence of job crafting. It's not about changing what you do, but changing how you feel about what you do. Recognizing that your current role is a platform of influence where you can choose to see your contributions as part of a larger, meaningful narrative. As Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this applies directly to the meetings you lead, the reports you write, the customers you serve, or the products you create, each can be reframed from a mundane duty into an act of support, mentorship, innovation, or care that ripples outward. The path forward tonight is not about adding more to your plate, but about a gentle shift in perception. As you prepare for rest, ask yourself this simple question without the pressure of an immediate answer. In what small way does my work, even indirectly, contribute to the well-being, success, or comfort of another person? Allow this question to linger, not as a problem to solve, but as an invitation to see the invisible threads of connection that already exist between your efforts and the human ecosystem around you. By consciously choosing to view your role through the lens of service and impact, you reclaim agency over your experience. And the same tasks that once felt draining can become sources of quiet pride, not because the work itself has changed, but because you have chosen to recognize the purpose that was always there, waiting for you to acknowledge it.
You've been taught that finding your passion requires a monumental, life-altering discovery. But the most reliable signpost to what truly energizes you is a feeling you've already experienced countless times, that state of effortless absorption where time seems to dissolve, known as flow. In the midst of your demanding schedule, it's easy to feel that your life is a series of obligations where your energy is constantly being drained by tasks that require willpower and discipline, leaving you with little vitality for anything else and creating the underlying sensation of being depleted and running on empty. This feeling of exhaustion is not just about being busy. It's about an energy imbalance where the activities that drain you far outweigh those that replenish you, because we're conditioned to view our personal interests and moments of deep engagement as frivolous luxuries rather than essential sources of fuel. The paradigm shift is this: the activities that cause you to lose track of time, whether it's organizing a closet, working in the garden, lost in a book, planning a detailed trip, or tinkering with a project, are not mere distractions or hobbies. They are direct portals to your core energy, the things that your brain and body are inherently wired to find rewarding and engaging. This state of flow is your innate guidance system, and these activities are not random. They are clues to the types of challenges, environments, and moods of expression that naturally align with your strengths and interests, whether it's the quiet focus of creating order, the creative expression of arranging elements, or the intellectual curiosity of solving a complex problem. The path to integrating more purpose into your life is not about adding another stressful quest, but about intentionally creating more space for these flow states, recognizing them as non-negotiable sources of renewal that refill your reserves and clarify your thinking. So tonight, as you release the tension of the day, ask yourself this gentle observational question:
When was the last time I was so engrossed in an activity that I completely lost sense of the clock? Don't force an answer or judge its practicality. Simply recall the sensation, the quiet focus, the absence of struggle. This reflection isn't about scheduling more tasks. It's about giving yourself permission to acknowledge and value the things that genuinely replenish you, understanding that these moments of flow are not escapes from your life, but the very keys to building a more resilient, energized, and authentic one.
You might believe that managing your energy is a complex psychological endeavor, but the most practical and immediate way to regain a sense of vitality is to approach it not as a mystery, but as a simple audit, a calm review of the tangible inputs and outputs that shape your day. That feeling of being drained, of running on empty by Wednesday afternoon, isn't a personal failing or a sign of weakness. It's a direct signal that your energy reserves are being depleted faster than they are being replenished. A common reality when life becomes a relentless cycle of meeting external demands, with little attention paid to what sustains you internally. This depletion creates a fog that makes clear thinking and purposeful action feel impossible, because we often push through exhaustion using sheer willpower, ignoring the subtle cues that tell us which activities, conversations, or environments subtly lift us, and which ones quietly weigh us down. The liberating shift is this: your energy is not a finite resource you helplessly lose, but a dynamic flow that you can learn to manage with intention, by simply bringing a gentle, non-judgmental awareness to the patterns that already exist. It's about noticing the specific, often small things, the sense of clarity after organizing a drawer, the lightness you feel after a walk in nature, or the invigoration from a truly connecting conversation, or conversely, the heaviness that follows a certain type of meeting, or the mental fatigue from scrolling through a particular feed. This isn't about eliminating all draining tasks immediately, which is often impossible, but about starting to consciously identify them, and more importantly, about recognizing and intentionally inviting in more of the moments that fill you up, however brief they may be. The goal tonight is not to solve this, but to simply begin the practice of observation. As you lie in the quiet, review the past day not in terms of productivity or achievement, but through the single lens of energy. Ask yourself, what was one moment, however small, that left me feeling a little lighter, clearer, or more connected? And what was one moment that left me feeling subtly drained or heavy? Don't analyze why or plan to change anything. Just observe the correlation between your activities and your inner state. This simple act of noticing, done consistently, begins to illuminate your unique blueprint of your personal sustainability, empowering you to make small, intentional adjustments that slowly but surely tilt the balance from depletion toward renewal,
revealing that the path to a more purposeful life is paved not with grand gestures, but with conscious choices about where you direct your precious attention.
It's one of the most exhausting and isolating habits we have. This constant, silent courtroom drama playing out in your mind where you are both the harsh judge of everyone else's mistakes and the terrified defendant pleading your own good intentions. And you feel the weight of this, don't you? That draining tension between the person you're expected to be and the person you fear you are, between the sharp criticism you direct outward and the gentle excuses you make for yourself. A conflict that leaves you feeling perpetually misunderstood and secretly fraudulent. But what if the entire framework is backwards, built on a fundamental error in perspective that guarantees this inner conflict? The liberating truth, a simple but profound shift in focus, is this: we must learn to judge others by their intentions and ourselves by our actions. Consider the last time someone let you down. A friend who didn't call, a colleague who dropped the ball. Your mind likely instantly cataloged their failure, their action, or their lack thereof, and wrote a story of their negligence or disrespect. Yet, when you are the one who fails to follow through, your inner narrative is rich with context. You were overwhelmed. You meant to. The stress at home was distracting you. Your intention was pure. This is the reality check. Before you sentence someone in the court of your mind based solely on their actions, pause and ask, what was their intention? Often you'll find it was the same as yours: to be good, to be enough, to get through the day without failing. They too are likely carrying a burden you cannot see, fighting a battle you know nothing about, and their misstep was likely not a targeted offense, but a symptom of their own struggle. Now, turn that same rigorous compassion inward, but flip the script. Instead of clinging to your good intentions as a shield, gently hold yourself accountable for your actions, not to punish yourself, but to align your outer life with your inner values. This is not about self-flagellation, it is about integrity and empowerment. When you judge yourself by your actions, you reclaim agency over the story you are actually living, not just the one you hope to live. So tonight, as the day settles, I invite you to ponder just one quiet question, not as a task, but as a lens. Where today can I grant the grace of assumed positive intent to someone else, and where can I kindly, honestly acknowledge the gap between my own intention and my action? This is the path to softening your perspective, to dissolving resentment, and to building a life where your inner and outer worlds begin, finally, to make peace. There is a silent, draining war you wage in the shadows of your mind, a battle born from the noble yet exhausting belief that your worth is measured by your ability to manage the people and situations around you, to ensure everyone behaves as they should, to maintain a fragile peace. But this relentless need to control is the very source of the isolation and fatigue you feel, that subtle undercurrent of resentment when your family doesn't appreciate your sacrifices or your colleagues fail to meet your unspoken expectations, leaving you feeling more like a frustrated manager of other people's lives than the protagonist of your own. We are taught that love and leadership are about steering the ship, about preventing chaos at all costs. But this is a profound misunderstanding that confuses control for care. And it's time to challenge that assumption head on. True strength lies not in gripping tighter, but in the courageous practice of release, embodied in the liberating simplicity of the let them theory. This is not about passive resignation. It is about active trust, letting others be who they are, make their own choices, and face their own consequences, because the exhausting alternative of trying to micromanage their paths only drains your energy and blinds you to your own journey. Consider the hard conversations you avoid, the feedback you swallow, the compromises you make to keep the surface calm under the illusion that you are preserving connection, when in reality you're building a wall of unspoken grievances. But here is the paradigm shift. If you love someone and they say you love you, a hard conversation should bring you closer together. And if you're scared to have that conversation, it means you're not that close, revealing that the foundation may be built on fear, not faith. This reframe is your invitation to freedom, to stop carrying the burden of outcomes that are not yours to bear, to understand that you cannot force someone to see your value, to respect your time, or to love you in the way you expect, and that your peace is found in focusing on what you can control, your own responses, your own boundaries, your own integrity. When you release the need to control others, you reclaim the energy to build a life that is authentically yours, one where your relationships are chosen, not choreographed, and where conflict becomes not a threat, but a tool for deepening understanding. So tonight, as you release the day, I invite you to hold one gentle question in your mind, not as a problem to solve, but as a landscape to explore. Where in your life are you holding the reins too tightly? And what might become possible if you simply let them?
You probably believe that your private struggles are a unique sign of failure, that the gap between your messy reality and the polished perfection you see online is proof you're falling behind. But this constant, silent comparison is a trap built on a fundamental illusion, the curated highlight reel of others' lives that leaves you feeling inadequate, isolated, and wondering why your path feels so much harder. That weight you carry, scrolling through a feed of promotions, vacation photos, and seemingly flawless families, is the heavy cost of comparing your behind the scenes with everyone else's final cut. A draining habit that makes your own challenges feel like personal defects rather than universal human experiences. But here is the liberating truth that dismantles the entire game of comparison. No one's life is perfect. They are simply better at cropping out the pain, editing out the chaos, and presenting a version of reality so streamlined it becomes a weapon against your own peace of mind. You've got to know what's happening behind their perfect Instagram posts, the anxiety they carry about that promotion, the argument they had with their partner just before that smiling family photo, the health scare they're worrying about in silence, the lonely nights, feeling just as uncertain as you do. When you actually see the full picture of someone's life, with all its unshared struggles and hidden burdens, you won't compare anymore, because you'll understand that everyone is fighting a hard battle you know nothing about. The person you envy for their career success might be grieving a loss. The one with the perfect marriage might be struggling with intimacy. And the friend who seems to have it all figured out is likely questioning their purpose just like you.
This isn't about schadenfreude, it's about empathy and a profound sense of relief, realizing that the playing field is not uneven. It's just that everyone is playing a different game on the same difficult terrain. The energy you waste measuring your life against an illusion can be reclaimed to nurture your own journey, to appreciate the small, authentic victories in your day, and to connect more deeply with others from a place of shared humanity rather than perceived lack. So tonight, as you let the day settle, I invite you to hold one gentle question in your mind, not to find an answer, but to soften your perspective. When you feel the pinch of comparison tomorrow, what unseen story, what quiet struggle might you choose to imagine behind the smile of the person you think has it all? This simple act of compassionate curiosity is the first step toward disarming comparison and finding solace in the beautiful, imperfect truth of our shared experience.
We've been taught to believe that a hard conversation is a sign of failure, a crack in the foundation of a relationship that must be avoided at all costs. But this is a lie that keeps us isolated and lonely, navigating our most important connections on eggshells because we fear that speaking our truth will be the very thing that shatters the fragile peace we've worked so hard to maintain. You know this tension all too well. The heavy silence in the car after a long day, the unspoken frustration that simmers during a family dinner, the careful editing of your words with a colleague to keep the boat from rocking, all driven by that primal fear that if you actually voice what's real, you might lose the very person you're trying to protect. This constant vigilance is exhausting because it forces you to choose between your integrity and your connection, asking you to shrink a part of yourself to maintain a superficial harmony which only leads to a quiet resentment that builds walls in the very spaces where intimacy should live, leaving you feeling like a manager of emotions than a partner or friend, stuck on a path of polite distance. But here is the profound reframe. A difficult discussion, when approached not as a battle to be won, but as a bridge to be built, is actually the highest form of respect and love you can offer. It is the ultimate stress test that proves the relationship's structural integrity, a deliberate act of faith that whispers, this bond is too important to be built on a foundation of silence. It is strong enough to handle the full, honest weight of us. This is where true closeness is forged, not in the absence of conflict, but in the courageous, vulnerable navigation of it together. When you lower your guard, not to weaken your position, but to invite the other person into your authentic reality, creating a sacred space where they too can safely let down their own armor. When you choose to engage with a genuine desire to understand, the conversation transforms from a confrontation into a collaboration, a mutual excavation that uncovers a deeper layer of trust and respect that was impossible when you were both merely polishing the surface, pretending everything was fine. It proves the relationship can handle the truth, and in that proof, you find an unshakable connection. So, as you settle into the quiet of the evening, release the pressure to have the perfect words ready, and instead gently hold this question, not as a task, but as a quiet possibility to ponder. What is one relationship in your life that feels strong enough, valuable enough to deserve the solid ground that a single, kindly spoken truth could provide?
It's a cruel irony that when we need gratitude the most, the well-intentioned advice to count our blessings can feel like a hollow exercise, a forced checklist that only amplifies the ache of a day where everything feels like it's falling apart. But what if the problem isn't with gratitude itself, but with a fundamental misunderstanding of how it truly works? You know this feeling all too well, the relentless pressure of a career that demands more than it gives. The autopilot routine of school runs and deadlines that leaves you feeling like a ghost in your own life. The heavy sense that your worst days are a sign of failure rather than a universal human experience. It's in these moments that being told to appreciate what you have can sting, because the gap between your reality and your aspirations feels vast, and the weight of overwhelm makes it difficult to see anything but the lack. Yet the liberating shift lies in a simple but profound reframe, drawn from a deeper wisdom. Gratitude isn't about listing what you possess. It's about feeling the profound value of what you could not live without. Where you are today, with the home you've built, the people you love, the simple stability you've earned, is exactly what you once yearned for in a past chapter, a dream that has now materialized, but our minds are wired to notice what's missing, not what's present. The most powerful way to trick your mind into genuine appreciation is to pause and actively imagine your life without a single foundational element, like the health of a child, the loyalty of a partner, or even the use of a hand. And in that mental absence, the ordinary is instantly transformed into the extraordinary. This practice doesn't dismiss your pain, it puts it in perspective, revealing that someone else, somewhere, would gladly trade their deepest struggle for what you might consider your worst day, because they see the treasure you've grown accustomed to. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this shift from possession to potential loss unlocks a current of thankfulness that feels authentic, not obligatory. So as you settle into the quiet of the night, release the pressure to fix anything, and instead gently hold this question as a lens for reflection. What is one thing so seamlessly integrated into your world that imagining its absence would suddenly make everything else shine with newfound meaning?
We've been sold a dangerous myth that strength is born from relentlessly dissecting our flaws and the flaws of others, that constant self-criticism is the price of growth. But this internal war of focusing on what's wrong only drains your energy and keeps you circling the same doubts, mistaking the echo of your own insecurities for a realistic assessment of your life. You know this inner dialogue all too well, the mental replay of a missed detail at work that clouds the entire day. The heavy feeling of not measuring up as a partner or parent when compared to the curated highlights of others. The automatic habit of noticing what's lacking in a situation rather than what's solid, all of which leaves you feeling perpetually behind and deeply alone in your struggles, as if you're the only one who hasn't figured it out. This exhausting focus on weakness is what true strength actively rejects, because, as wisdom reveals, weak people notice mistakes and laugh, seeking temporary superiority, while strong people notice mistakes and learn, transforming every misstep into a stepping stone. Weak people gossip to build fake connections based on shared judgment,
while strong people express vulnerability to build real bonds based on mutual trust. The paradigm shift is this: your strength is not defined by how harshly you can critique yourself or others, but where you deliberately place your attention, whether you choose to amplify what's broken or illuminate what's working, both within you and in the people around you. When you constantly spotlight weaknesses, you program your mind for scarcity and defense. But when you train yourself to focus on strengths, you unlock a reservoir of confidence and creativity. Because what you appreciate appreciates. Your innate talent, the problems you solve effortlessly for your family, the resilience you show even on tough days. These are not small things. They are your superpowers, made invisible only by familiarity. This isn't about ignoring reality, but about changing your focal point from what drains you to what fuels you. Understanding that envy, for instance, can be your greatest teacher if you replace it with study, admiring someone's success to learn from it rather than using it as a yardstick for your own inadequacy. So, as you prepare for rest, release the burden of fixing every perceived shortfall, and instead gently consider this question as a quiet invitation for your mind to settle upon. What is one strength you possess, perhaps so natural to you that you never give it credit, that has consistently carried you through? And how might acknowledging it more deeply, beginning tonight, change the texture of your tomorrow?
It's a seductive lie to believe that friendship is forged in the good times, measured by shared laughs and easy conversations. But the undeniable truth is that the depth of any connection is only proven when the sun sets and the storms roll in, revealing who remains not out of convenience, but by choice. You know this tension intimately. The weight of a demanding job that leaves you drained, the autopilot routine of family obligations that can make you feel like a ghost in your own life, and the quiet fear that if you were to truly show your struggles, the facade of competence might crack, and the people you count on would retreat. This fear breeds a subtle isolation where you navigate challenges alone, believing that being hard to love is a burden to be hidden, not a state where true loyalty is revealed. But here is the liberating reframe, drawn from a deeper wisdom. Bad times are not a curse. They are a sacred filter that separates the fleeting from the foundational. The people who see the best in you when you are at your worst. The friend who calls not because they want something, but because they sense your silence. The family member who offers grace when you are irritable and withdrawn. The colleague who supports you without seeking credit. These individuals are not just being kind. They are demonstrating a profound truth about your worth. They value you more than popularity or transaction. They value your essence, and in doing so, they reveal a strength of character that is rare and precious. These are the people who, as the wisdom shared, would show up for you even when it's not easy, when it's not popular, because their commitment is to you, not to the version of you that has it all together. This realization transforms your perspective on struggle. Instead of a period of lack, it becomes a moment of clarity, where the noise of superficial relationships fades and the steady signal of genuine connection emerges. These great people are your anchors, and their presence is a testament to the fact that you are loved for not your utility, but for your humanity. So, as you settle into the stillness of the evening, release the pressure to navigate everything alone, and gently hold this question, not as a task, but as a meditation. Who is one person in your life who has consistently seen the light in you during your darkest moments? And what would it feel like to carry the quiet certainty of their loyalty into your tomorrow?
We have been conditioned to treat love as a silent contract, a delicate balance sheet where every gesture of support or moment of attention is meticulously logged with the quiet expectation of a return on investment. But this exhausting scorekeeping is what slowly suffocates our most important relationships, turning generosity into a debt and connection into a negotiation. You feel this weight in the daily grind, the mental tally of who last initiated a text, the slight resentment when a kindness you offered isn't immediately reciprocated, the underlying pressure in your partnerships and friendships that transforms simple acts of care into strategic moves in a game you never meant to play, leaving you feeling more like an accountant of affection than a participant in it, constantly monitoring the flow of energy and often finding it lacking. This is the pain of transactional love, where your giving feels conditional and your receiving feels earned, a cycle that breeds fatigue and isolation. But the liberating truth drawn from a profound wisdom is that real love operates on an entirely different principle. It is a circle, not a transaction. If you do something for someone and expect nothing in return, that is the pure essence of love. If you expect something back, that is merely business, a contract that will always leave you disappointed, because people express care in different currencies and capacities. The energy you put out into the world does not vanish. It completes a circuit, but it will often return to you from an unexpected direction, not necessarily from the person you gave it to, but from a different friend, a family member, or even a stranger, in a form you might not have anticipated. Your partner may not express love through words, but through making the coffee each morning. A friend may not plan elaborate gatherings, but will be the first to call in a crisis. When you release the demand for a specific type of repayment, you open yourself to receiving love in its countless quiet forms, recognizing that the person who consistently shows up in their own way is offering a treasure you might have been too busy scorekeeping to see. This shift from ledger to circle dissolves the pressure and allows you to give freely, not as an investment, but as an expression of who you are. So as you let the day settle around you, release the mental list of who owes what, and instead gently ponder this single question. Where has love been flowing into your life from a source you haven't been counting on? And what would it feel like to simply receive it without the burden of debt?
Perhaps the most exhausting relational burden we carry is the unspoken demand that the people in our lives must learn to love us in the exact specific way we have predetermined, a secret script we hand them, then feel quietly disappointed when they fail to follow it perfectly, mistaking their different language of care for a lack of care itself. You know this subtle ache, the frustration when a partner shows devotion through practical acts of service, but not the words of affirmation you crave. The deflation when a friend supports you with grounded advice instead of the empathetic listening you needed. The cumulative sense that if you were truly valued, they would just know how to make you feel seen, and their inability to do so becomes proof of a fundamental disconnect. This constant silent assessment creates a wall between you and the very people you want to be closest to, leaving you feeling misunderstood and oddly lonely even within your own relationships, as if you are perpetually waiting for a version of love that never quite arrives. But the liberating reframe, drawn from a deep well of wisdom, is this:
No one will ever love you exactly how you want them to, because that is not their job. It is the work of your own spirit and the domain of a higher grace. By insisting on a single, narrow channel for love to flow through, you are like a person standing by a vast ocean, complaining of thirst because you brought only a single specific cup. You are blocking yourself from the limitless, unique ways people are already trying to love you. Your partner's habit of making the coffee each morning is love. Your friend's consistent low-pressure check-in is love. Your child's spontaneous hug is love. These are not lesser expressions, they are simply different dialects of the same universal language. The moment you release the demand for a perfect performance and open yourself to receiving the love that is actually being offered, you step out of a scarcity mindset and into an abundance you never noticed. This shift transforms your relationships from a source of scrutiny into a source of sustenance.
We often believe that resolving conflict requires elaborate conversations and perfect phrasing, but the most transformative tool for connection is disarmingly simple: a single, two-word question, asked not with accusation, but with genuine curiosity. Why? You know the friction that arises from misinterpreted actions all too well. The quiet resentment when a partner makes a decision that feels insensitive. The frustration with a colleague's approach that seems illogical. The distance that grows when you assume you understand someone's motives based solely on the outcome, which often leads to building a case against them in your mind while the real story remains untold. This habit of judging actions without understanding intentions is a primary source of isolation in relationships, leaving you feeling perpetually misunderstood and quick to defend, locked in a cycle of reaction rather than connection. The paradigm shift, inspired by a profound lesson from a mentor, is to pause and ask why, with the intent to learn, not to blame. This question is a key that unlocks the hidden room of a person's intention. It replaces the assumption of malice with the discovery of context, transforming a potential argument into a moment of empathy. When you ask, "Why did you do it that way?" or "What was behind that choice?" you are no longer confronting a behavior, you are inviting a story. And within that story lies the truth that their intention was likely not neglect or opposition, but a different perspective, a protective instinct, or a simple oversight. This practice dissolves the misunderstanding at its source, because we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions. But when you bridge that gap with a curious why, you build a bridge of understanding instead of a wall of judgment. So, as you unwind from the day, release the pressure to have all the answers, and instead let this question settle gently in your mind. Is there a situation where choosing curiosity over conclusion, by simply asking why, might reveal an intention you hadn't considered, and in doing so, bring a sense of peace to a relationship tonight?
You've been sold a lie, the most paralyzing lie of modern adulthood. that you need a detailed, foolproof master plan before you can even think about moving forward. That clarity must precede action. And until you have this grand vision mapped out with military precision, you are condemned to stand still, watching life happen to you from behind a glass wall of your own hesitation. And I know exactly how that feels. The quiet hum of frustration as you scroll through other people's highlight reels. The weight of responsibility that makes dreaming feel like a luxury you can't afford. The autopilot rhythm of days that blend into weeks, where you're executing tasks but feel utterly disconnected from any sense of purpose or momentum. It's not that you don't want to change. It's that the mountain ahead seems too vast to climb without a guaranteed path to the summit. So you stay in the foothills of your current reality, mistaking preparation for progress and confusing planning with living. But here is the liberating truth, the paradigm shift that changes everything. You are not waiting for the path to appear. You are meant to create the path with each step you take, and the most profound journeys begin not with a detailed map, but with the courage to take one small, intentional step into the unknown. You are, right now, only one decision away from turning your life in a different direction, because momentum doesn't come from seeing the entire staircase. It comes from trusting that the first step is enough, and that this step isn't about blindly leaping toward some foreign fantasy, but about fully engaging with where you already are. This is the critical reframe. It's not about falling in love with something new, but about extracting every possible lesson, skill, and ounce of strength from your present circumstances, transforming your current place of perceived stagnation into a powerful launchpad. Think of your life not as a pre-written script, but as a collection of jigsaw pieces you are gathering with every experience, especially the difficult ones. And one day, you will look down and see how they all connect. But you cannot connect dots you haven't first collected. So tonight, as you prepare to rest, I invite you to release the burden of needing the full picture. Instead, simply sit with this one contemplative question, not as a task, but as a gentle inquiry. What is the one small thing I can do tomorrow, not to escape my current reality, but to engage with it more deeply, to learn from it, to extract one new piece of the puzzle? The answer doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be yours. And in that simple shift of focus, from the overwhelming whole to the manageable part, you will find that the pressure lifts. The path begins to reveal itself not ahead of you, but beneath your feet. And you realize you were never truly stuck. You were just learning how to move in a new way.
We are conditioned to believe that our value is measured by immediate, visible outcomes, the promotion earned, the praise received, the tangible proof that our efforts have mattered. And when that validation doesn't come, or when our days feel like a series of repetitive tasks that vanish into the ether without a trace, it's easy to fall into the quiet despair of wondering if any of it truly counts, if the small acts of care and consistency, packing lunches, meeting deadlines, listening to a friend, actually contribute to anything larger than the endless cycle of responsibility. You might look at your life and see only the routine, the obligations that leave you feeling invisible, as if you're pouring energy into a void where nothing grows, and the longing to make a real difference becomes clouded by the pressure to see results now, to have your purpose validated by external applause,
which only deepens the sense of being stuck on a treadmill of expectation. But here is the profound truth that liberates us from that pressure. The most enduring contributions are often the ones that leave no immediate footprint. The acts done not for recognition, but for the simple, sacred reason that they are right. And their power lies in their ripple effect through time, much like planting a seed with no guarantee you'll ever sit under the tree it becomes. Consider the hospital cleaners who saw themselves not as janitors, but as healers, understanding that a clean space was integral to dignity and recovery. They may never have met the patients who benefited, but their service created a legacy of care that transcended their shift. This is the essence of planting trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit. It's an act of faith in the future, a recognition that the good we put into the world, whether a kind word, a patient moment with a child, or a job done with integrity, sends out roots that others will one day find shelter in. And this shifts the metric of success from what you receive to what you give, without expectation. Your life is already a garden of these unseen seeds. The consistency you show up with every day, the love you offer without fanfare, the skills you share quietly, they are all growing in ways you can't yet see. And this isn't a passive hope, but an active trust that meaning is woven into the fabric of small, intentional acts. So tonight, as you let the day settle, I invite you to gently reflect on this question, not as a burden to do more, but as an opportunity to see the legacy you're already building. Where have you already planted a seed, perhaps without even realizing it, that might one day provide shade for someone else? Allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that your value isn't dependent on the harvest you witness, but on the courage to keep planting. And in that release, you may find a deep, quiet fulfillment that needs no external proof to be real.
In a world that constantly measures connection by the weight of its transactions, the favors exchanged, the obligations met, the calculated balance of who has done what for whom, we've been led to believe that reaching out without a specific reason is a minor social sin, an interruption in someone's busy life, or worse, a sign of neediness. So we hold back, silencing that quiet intuition that tells us to send a simple text, convinced that our small gesture couldn't possibly matter amidst the noise of everyone else's demands. You know this feeling well. The mental list of people you've been meaning to check in on, the fleeting thought of a friend that crosses your mind during a quiet moment, only to be dismissed by the assumption that they're too busy or that you'll seem intrusive. And so the moment passes, and with it, a chance for genuine connection, leaving you feeling more isolated within the very network of relationships that's meant to sustain you. But what if that impulse to connect, that sudden, unbidden thought of someone, isn't random noise, but a profound form of intelligence? We have an amazing innate sense to know when someone needs us, a quiet nudge from a deeper place that recognizes a silent struggle or a moment where a little light is needed. And the most powerful response to that intuition is also the simplest, a message sent with no agenda, no request, nothing but the pure, unadulterated gift of presence. The text that says only, "thinking of you," is a radical act of love in a transactional world. It is love defined not by grand declarations, but by the two essential qualities of admiration and consideration. You see something in that person, and you're holding them in your mind,
And that simple act, costing nothing but a moment of attention, can change the entire topography of a person's day, pulling them from isolation into the warm light of feeling seen. This is the hidden refrain, that these micro acts of connection are not interruptions, but the very lifeblood of relationship. And the best time to message someone is precisely when you don't want anything, because that is when the love is pure and the impact is most profound. This practice transforms the sender as much as the receiver. For in acting on that intuitive nudge, you step out of autopilot and into a state of purposeful presence, aligning your actions with a deeper, more compassionate frequency. So as you unwind tonight, I invite you to ponder this not as a task, but as a gentle curiosity. The next time a person's name or face floats into your awareness, without judgment or pressure, simply notice it. What if that isn't a random thought, but a quiet invitation to participate in a network of care that costs nothing but means everything? There is no need to act tonight. Simply rest with the awareness that you are connected. You are capable of offering profound comfort, and you are likely already on someone else's mind, too.
That sharp, acidic feeling of jealousy you sometimes get when you see someone else's success isn't a character flaw to be ashamed of. It's a misplaced and untapped source of intelligence, a raw signal pointing you toward a possibility for your own life that you haven't yet permitted yourself to claim. And when you misinterpret this signal as mere inadequacy, you shut down a vital channel of guidance, retreating further into the feeling of being stuck, while others seem to move forward with ease. You scroll through a feed, hear a story, see a peer's achievement, and that familiar knot tightens in your chest, a mix of longing and frustration that whispers, "Why them and not me?" leaving you feeling smaller, disconnected from your own potential, as if you're on the outside, looking in at a life you can't quite reach. But what if you could take that very same feeling, that pang of envy, and instead of letting it diminish you, you could transform it into the most practical and empowering learning mission of your life? The liberating shift is this: turn envy into study. This is the critical difference between weak people who focus on others' weaknesses and strong people who focus on their strengths. Weak people envy those ahead of them, while strong people study them. When you choose to study someone you admire, you stop comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel and start asking the constructive questions. What specific steps did they take? What mindset did they cultivate? What challenges did they overcome that I don't see? This investigative shift changes everything. The person you envied becomes a living textbook, and their journey becomes a source of actionable clues for your own. The moment you start studying, the illusion of effortless success dissolves, replaced by a respectful understanding of the real effort, discipline, and resilience required. And the phrase, "now I know what it takes," becomes a mantra of empowerment, not defeat. That figure you admire is no longer a threat, but a teacher. The jealousy that once isolated you now connects you to a path of growth, becoming an unlikely ally that points toward your own latent desires and capabilities. So tonight, as you settle into the quiet, consider this not as a task, but as a gentle reframe. The next time that familiar feeling arises, could you see it as a curious signal, an invitation to ask one simple question: what is one thing I can learn from this person's journey that resonates with my own? There is no pressure to act, only an opportunity to see that feeling of inadequacy for what it can be. Not a wall, but a compass, guiding you toward a version of yourself that is already waiting to be realized.
We've been sold a monumental lie about purpose,
that it must be a seismic, career-defining discovery, a grand calling that arrives with a flash of lightning and transforms your entire life. And if your 9-to-5 doesn't feel like a world-changing mission, then you've somehow failed at the most important task of being human, leaving you to watch the clock and wonder if this daily routine is all there is. You feel this deeply, the tension between providing for your family and yearning for something more. The sense that your true self is compartmentalized into the narrow margins left after work and obligations, where the desire for meaning becomes just another item on an overwhelming to-do list, making purpose feel like a luxury for which you simply don't have the time or energy. But what if purpose was never meant to be a single, massive destination, but a quality of attention you bring to the smallest moments of your day? The liberating truth is that your purpose doesn't need to be big, get you followers, or be your job. It is simply the act of using what naturally brings you energy, your passion, in the service of others, in the simplest of ways. Think of the hospital cleaners who reframed their work as healing, or the retired mother who found joy in organizing trips for others. They discovered that purpose is not about scale, but about intention, about the quiet shift from what am I getting to how can I contribute. This is something accessible to you right now, today, in the margins you already have. It's in the patience you extend to your child when you're tired, the thoughtful advice you offer a colleague, the batch of soup you share with a neighbor. These are not small, insignificant acts, but the very essence of a life lived with purpose, where your passion for connection, order, beauty, or care becomes a gift to those around you. This reframe releases the immense pressure to find one grand thing and instead invites you to notice the countless opportunities for meaning that are already woven into the fabric of your existing life. So as you prepare to rest, let go of the burden of finding your purpose as if it's a hidden treasure map. Instead, consider this gentle question as you drift off. When did I last feel a small spark of energy or satisfaction in my day, and how did that moment, however brief, touch someone else's life? There is no need to plan or do anything tomorrow. Simply rest in the recognition that your purpose is not a distant goal to be achieved, but a presence to be recognized in the very life you are already living.
The most draining part of your day isn't the long hours or the demanding tasks. It's the silent, grinding belief that the essential routines of your life, making breakfast, commuting, answering emails, folding laundry, are empty chores, meaningless repetitions that separate you from a more purposeful existence, creating a quiet resentment for the very foundation that keeps your world running. You move through these motions on autopilot, feeling the weight of their monotony, convinced that meaning must be found somewhere else, in some future, more exciting version of your life. And so the present moment becomes a waiting room you're desperate to leave. But what if the secret to unlocking a profound sense of purpose isn't about changing what you do, but changing why you believe you are doing it? This is the power of what researchers call job crafting, and it's beautifully illustrated by the hospital cleaners who saw themselves not as janitors, but as healers. Understanding that a clean environment was integral to patient dignity and recovery, they performed the same tasks, but their why transformed the experience of their what entirely. The same alchemy is available to you in every corner of your life. The commute becomes not lost time, but a transition space to mentally prepare to be fully present for your family.
Making a meal becomes an act of nurturing and love, not just a duty. Even answering an email can be framed as an act of clear communication that respects a colleague's time. The why changes the experience of the what because it connects a small action to a larger value, infusing mundane necessity with personal significance. This isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about shifting the weight of what's already there from your hands to your heart. So tonight, as you review the day, I invite you to consider one routine task from your day, just one. As you bring it to mind, gently ask yourself, if I were to approach this task with a higher intention, a deeper why that connects to who I want to be in the world, what would that intention be? There's no need to change anything yet. Simply rest with the quiet understanding that the potential for meaning isn't distant. It's hidden in plain sight, waiting to be revealed by a single, powerful question.
The greatest obstacle to building a meaningful life isn't a lack of ambition. It's the crushing myth that you need large, uninterrupted blocks of time to make any real progress, a belief that forces you to postpone your growth until some elusive someday when life is less busy, leaving you feeling perpetually behind before you've even begun. You look at your calendar, packed with obligations, and the idea of finding an extra hour or two for yourself feels like a logistical impossibility. So you dismiss the small available moments, the 15 minutes before a meeting, the quiet after the kids are in bed, as insignificant, believing that real change requires a scale of effort that your current life simply cannot accommodate. But this overlooks a fundamental truth of transformation. Consistency over intensity. The most powerful shifts are built not from occasional heroic leaps, but from the quiet, daily discipline of small, intentional actions that compound over time, like water patiently shaping stone. This is the liberating reframe. You don't need to find 2 hours in the evening. You can use the small pockets of time you already have to build skills or serve others in tiny, manageable ways. Why not use your commute to listen to a podcast that fuels your curiosity, or spend 10 minutes writing one idea in a journal, or send a single text to encourage someone? These actions may seem minor in isolation, but their power lies in their repetition. Each small step is a vote for the person you want to become, a deliberate thread woven into the fabric of your days, building confidence and momentum far more effectively than sporadic, overwhelming bursts of effort that lead to burnout. This approach aligns with the natural rhythm of a responsible life, removing the pressure of a major overhaul and replacing it with the sustainable practice of gradual cultivation. So tonight, as you release the day, consider this not as another task, but as a gentle invitation to reconsider the spaces in your day. What is one small 15-minute action that aligns with your energy? Something that feels less like a chore and more like a quiet investment in yourself or someone else. Don't plan to do it. Simply rest with the awareness that the path to purpose isn't built in a day, but in minutes. And you already have more of them than you think.
You've been taught to wait for a sign, a lightning bolt of certainty, a clear call-in shouted from the heavens before you dare to step towards something new. And because that thunder never comes, you dismiss the quiet, recurring nudges as irrelevant.
mistaking their subtlety for insignificance and resigning yourself to the safety of the known. You know this feeling intimately, that faint tug toward a hobby, a skill, or a different way of being that flickers at the edge of your awareness during a quiet moment, only to be quickly extinguished by the practical voice that says, "Be realistic," or "Where would that even lead?" leaving you with a vague sense of longing, but no permission to explore it. But what if that whisper is not a deficient version of a clearer signal, but the only way your intuition can speak to you through the noise of your daily life? The profound shift is to stop waiting for a shout and start honoring the whisper, to understand that the little voice suggesting, "You love organizing birthdays," or "Try writing that down," is not asking you to quit your job and become a professional event planner or author overnight. It is simply inviting you to experiment, to play, to give it a go without any pressure for it to become your entire identity. This is the essence of following the whisper. It is not a binding contract, but an invitation to sample, to collect a new experience without the weight of a lifelong commitment. The goal is not immediate success or a dramatic life change, but the act of engaging with that pole itself, of reminding yourself that you are capable of curiosity and discovery. When you release the expectation of a grand outcome, you reclaim the freedom to simply explore, to see what happens when you follow that thread for no other reason than it brings you a spark of energy. So tonight, as you lie in the quiet, bring to mind one of those gentle whispers you've recently felt. Not the loudest one, but the quietest, most persistent one. And instead of analyzing it, simply ask yourself, what would it feel like to play with this idea just for a few minutes with no goal other than to see how it feels? There is no need to act, only to entertain the possibility that the path forward isn't found in the dramatic gestures, but in the courage to listen to and perhaps even enjoy the quietest voice within.
We are culturally obsessed with the breakthrough, the explosive transformation, the heroic effort that changes everything overnight. And this fixation secretly drains our power, because when we can't muster that level of dramatic intensity, we assume our efforts don't count, leading us to abandon promising paths simply because our progress feels too gradual to be meaningful. You feel this every time you set a goal with fiery enthusiasm, only to see the flame flicker out when life's demands inevitably return, leaving you with the discouraging sense that you lack the willpower or the time to truly change, reinforcing the narrative that you're just not capable of the kind of effort that real transformation requires. But what if the most potent force for change is not the intensity of a single leap, but the quiet, relentless power of consistency? This is the overlooked superpower, the compound growth of small, daily deposits. Consider the most reliable people in your life, the ones who consistently call, who remember small details, who show up. They are often the ones we take for granted, like familiar furniture, yet they form the unshakable foundation of our world. This same principle applies to our habits and growth. It is not the occasional all-day study session that builds expertise, but the 20 minutes of reading each night. Not the drastic overhaul of your diet, but the consistent choice to drink more water each day. These small, repeatable actions build neural pathways and skills with a stealth-like efficiency that intensity can never match, because intensity exhausts while consistency builds. It forges unshakable confidence, not through a few loud victories, but through the quiet proof, day after day, that you can trust yourself to show up. The grand gesture is like a fireworks display, spectacular but fleeting, while consistency is the slow, steady growth of a tree, creating a depth of roots and strength of branches that can weather any storm. So tonight, as you release the need for dramatic change, consider this gentle question. Where in my life have I already been consistent, perhaps without even realizing it? It could be in the way you read to your child, how you prepare your morning coffee, or your commitment to your team at work. Simply notice that pattern of showing up. There is no need to add anything new. Just rest in the recognition that the power to build a rich, meaningful life isn't found in the occasional explosion of effort, but in the quiet daily decision to return to the work, to the practice, to the people, one small, faithful step at a time.
You might believe that true progress requires constant, visible action, checking off tasks, pushing forward relentlessly, and that the quiet moments you steal for yourself at the end of a long day are merely a form of escape, a brief pause from the real work of life that does little to move the needle on your deepest goals. It's easy to dismiss this time spent listening, reflecting, or reading as passive, even indulgent, especially when the to-do list remains long and the sense of being behind persists, making this quiet hour feel like a temporary retreat rather than a genuine contribution to your growth. But this perspective misses a profound truth. The fact that you are here, investing this time in contemplative learning, is not a sign of avoidance, but a powerful, silent vote of confidence in your future self. This is the crucial reframe. This quiet time is not escaping, it is investing. You are already on the path, and the very act of seeking wisdom, of allowing new perspectives to settle into your mind before sleep, is an active and crucial part of the journey. While your body rests, your subconscious mind is at work, integrating insights, connecting dots, and preparing you to meet the next day with a slightly shifted, more resilient mindset. This is not a break from the work. It is the deep, internal processing that makes external action more intentional and effective. You are not stalled. You are in a phase of integration, which is just as vital as action. The belief that you must always be doing to be moving forward is a myth that leads to burnout. True, sustainable growth understands that rest and reflection are the fertile ground from which purposeful action grows. So as you prepare to sleep tonight, release any lingering guilt about taking this time for quiet study. Instead, simply acknowledge this gentle truth. By choosing to end your day this way, you are not postponing your journey. You are actively nurturing it. Allow yourself to trust that this investment in your inner world is compounding in ways you may not yet see, and that you are, right now, exactly where you need to be.